Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel, and today I'll be talking about why I don't particularly strive to be a nice parent, and I don't want my kids to grow up to be nice people. Instead, we'll talk about what we want instead in just a minute.
I'm happy to welcome you back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
First thing we're going to do is reflect a little bit on the past episode. Season 2 has just started. In the last episode, we talked about what it means to be a successful parent. And these episodes are going to more build off each other than it could be scattered tips that in season 1, we're just giving tips every episode after we got through the first 7 steps of the path, episodes 1 through 7. And this one's going to be streamed a little bit more together because we're looking to change how you think and approach different stages of parenting. And so we're going to have to link them together a little bit more for you. And so in the previous episode 1, which if you didn't get a chance to listen to, I highly recommend going back to it. It was a big one on how do we create positive outcomes for our children and what are positive outcomes for our children as they become adults. And so Mel, do you have any addendums or additions you'd like to make after thinking about it for a week and we chatted on it?
I think it's important that we as parents don't just do things based on what feels good and that we're very intentional with what we do. So I enjoyed, when we were finished last week, I really had enjoyed that conversation because sometimes we don't take the time to put words to the things that should be discussed. Do you go on a walk with your spouse and discuss these things, or do you just wing it as the days go by? So I think personally it was a really great episode for us, but also just the topic, the idea of being intentional about how you are as a parent. And also at the end, I really liked how we talked about when our kids are adults, what's going to make them want to come to us for our wisdom. And I talked a little bit about how you have to earn that. And that happens during those different stages of parenting.
That's a good point. Do you have any, or have you had any elders in your life, Mel, that you've gone to? Because I've seen questions that come through the way, like, hey, I'm a grandparent. How do I get my kids to respect me or do what I say or something like that? And I think the seeds have to be planted young. Well, they should be planted young. I don't want to say have to, because you can always sit down, have serious conversations and work on reconciliation of something that happened in the past. However, it's much easier if you start early. But do you have anyone in your life that jumps out that you look to as a wise elder?
My dad comes to mind just because he's always been such a stable and he's kind of salt of the earth. He grew up on a farm. I respect that. I respect that he always tried to teach us to take things apart and try to fix it yourself and not just go to someone else. And I think of him because he just seems like this real stable person that is just calm and bare, and we don't necessarily talk very often. But when I think of him, I feel like this inner calm, if that makes sense. But I also think that when I go to people, it's based on what I'm going to them for. Okay, he's really good at one of our circuits downstairs stopped working, the light stopped working. Of course, I called him because he knows those things, and I trust that he'll help me. If I want to go to someone else, my mom is really good at cooking and different recipes growing up. If I have a question, I didn't do this right, well, I'll go to her because I know she has that skill set.
And that's good that you have those connections and relationships. And I think we're going to have a direction we're going to go with a lot of season 2, which is, I want to make sure I articulate it well. I don't really care about the tremendous growth of a podcast, and we get advertised and all these things. What I care about is influencing how parents and their families interact so that they have better outcomes. And some of those two things can be at odds because we're going to say some things that are tough truths. And I think they need to be said. And I think you can trust us to say them because we're not looking for this huge audience or to be a national speaker or anything like that. We just want to share experiences. And sometimes there is some tough reality that goes with them. I've been on other podcasts and featured, and they keep pressing like, hey, what if your kids don't listen to you? So you need to hold the standard. You set the standard, hold the standard. And sometimes you have to be a little bit strict with them. Sometimes you can be a little bit lenient with it. What if they don't listen? Like, why do you keep asking me that question? You're gonna have to do the same thing over and over again until they do. It's not like have an outburst, yell at them and change your pattern because they're not listening. Instead, you use constant gentle pressure to be able to get to where you need to go. And this constant pressure of like, all right, what's the magic solution? Well, the magic solution is a ton of little things done again and again, repetitively every day to get the outcomes that you want. And some days you'll do everything right and the outcome still won't be in your favor. That happens. That's called life. And then the next day will happen and you'll do some things wrong and then everything worked out at the end. It's like, whoa, you know what? That's an anomaly too. Like, just don't plan on doing everything wrong and having it work out every time because that's not a great strategy either. So we want to shoot you straight with this stuff. And that's why I want to get into niceness versus kindness today. You
Can I
ready?
make one sidebar?
I knew you
Very
weren't ready. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't ready. This is, and I feel like I'm a broken record with this, but that's what constant gentle pressure is. And this is why the strong family path is so powerful. If I didn't sit down with my kids and do the evening debrief every night, then when they need me, they probably won't come to me because I won't be a consistent person that they can rely on. If I, like last week, I talked about puzzling, and that's this expectation now that we head downstairs, and then you have this expectation now with Henry that you're going to do 100 basketball shots. If those things don't happen on a daily basis or as often as possible, because I know some nights are just different for whatever reason, then we're laying that foundation, we're laying that groundwork so that when something does happen or when they do need us, they will know that we're reliable and they'll come to us. And that's the power of the path. We have dinners together as often as possible. We have meetings every week. I do the evening debrief. We have the morning routine. And I'm actually starting to get Everett to do a little bit more. So it's just those, like you said, it's many little things every day.
So say we're be talking about nice versus kind. I'm going to give you a little bit of the thesaurus definition of it and then how to apply it. Now you might say, oh, it's just words. And Mel, you can jump in on this as well. I think we need to care more about words than we do currently. People just think, oh, whatever, it just doesn't matter. I'll just say something that's close to. No, we should get things right when they do matter. We should care what we say. We should be more clear. And I think clarity is very kind. That's a Brene Brown and Carly Fernald saying that clarity is kind. And when you leave things ambiguous, you think you're being nice because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's really selfish to let you off the hook in the moment so you don't have an awkward interaction and you've done nothing to improve your life or their life.
It's funny you said thesaurus because you know I'm a big fan. And last night I was reading to Everett from the book that you wrote because he's actually asked me to start reading those entries from Joe's book to them every night. And he was like, I don't know if I like the word strong right now. So I was like, you know what? Do you know what a thesaurus is? Because it's like my shining moment. I'm like, yeah, I get to talk about thesauruses. And he didn't know. So of course I explained to him and we went on my phone and we typed in thesaurus.com, put in the word strong, and I read to him all the words. And he decided he liked the phrase well built.
He's very sturdy.
But the reason I bring this up though too is I was trying to explain to him that strong isn't just physical, it's also like a mindset.
The well-built family project. Man.
Or well-built mind. But my point is by discussing the different words that were listed, like some did not clearly apply, that's how I'm helping him to be more clear, to think more clearly, to not just throw a word out there. And I think that, well, maybe we should add a little thesaurus thing to our family meeting. But anyway, I took the opportunity. I know in the past I've talked about how I try to really take opportunities when they come. And yes, it's like 8:30 at night. Yes, we're all tired. But he had this question, and it was like, if I don't do it in the moment right now and help him build some more clarity on words, why not? Anyway, I thought that was relevant.
So referencing Mel's thesaurus, let's get to the meat of this. Nice, they have listed as being polite, pleasant, and agreeable. Polite, maybe. Like, you should be polite to people, I think. However, agreeable is the one that I struggle with. I think kids should not be as agreeable when other kids, they push them to directions that they shouldn't be going down. You say, that's an extreme situation. I see it more often than not now. You need to question what people are telling you. You need to question what you're seeing. You need to see if it fits through the filter of your own family values, and just don't agree with whatever flag, poster, whatever you see all over the classrooms now and all over restaurants. And you think, oh, Joe's extreme. We went down to Colorado Springs to go to a restaurant. We were looking for ones that didn't have certain emblems all over it. It took us like 5 or 6 restaurants to find it. I'm not looking to be agreeable with your political stances when I'm trying to get a sandwich. I'd be agreeable if you had a good sandwich. I'm not, you're trying to be nice to everyone. There's that word again. However, it's not the right time and place. And I'm not looking for a political agenda when I'm going out to a restaurant, a hardware store, anywhere, you name it. I'm looking for a quality experience, and I'm not looking to say, oh, that's nice. I'm going to be agreeable with what you think and how you behave. No, quit bothering me with this stuff. Life is so busy. Our time is so valuable, and we waste it on these fringe things way too much.
Things. If you're overly agreeable, I think that's probably because you don't have core values set. So we know what we're about. So when we go out into the world, we do our best to stay to our values. And that might be a difficult decision, or maybe it means let's just go home and we'll just eat at home. The other thing I was going to say is agreeable, I think also can mean that you're willing, like if a kid goes to school, they can't necessarily throw their arms up and just leave whenever they're unhappy with something going on. So I think it's also an ability to be with other people and not lose it all the time. So you're not necessarily agreeing with them, but you are able to sit with them and still hear them out. Does that make sense?
I think we're close. I think there's a nuance. There's an in-between area between losing and yelling at someone, which I feel like doing on the inside sometimes, and just pick, oh, Grace. Actually, no, I don't agree with that. I disagree with that. It's not losing it, but I think that is, go ahead.
What if you were invited out to go to a restaurant with friends? And it was like your friend's birthday, and they chose that restaurant that has these political things in it. Would you not go, or would you just be agreeable?
Correct.
You just wouldn't go.
You know I
Even
wouldn't
if
go.
but what if it's like your best friend's birthday and they really want you to be there to celebrate? So it's about them and it's not about the restaurant's political stance.
I still would.
Okay. But
you might, and I'm not saying I'm right. This is one of those, it's a personal opinion. I have drawn more lines in the sand lately. Like, I'm just not going to partake in a lot of these things anymore. I want to live my life. I want to focus on my family. I want to focus on my community, and I want to focus on selfishly my own personal development. And to get stuck in these conversations of this stuff is not worth a second of my time. I just won't do it. And I'm not going to be mean about it. I think that's the difference. Say, no, I'm not interested in going to that place. I'll catch up with you later. I'll do something else.
And I probably would go, but I'd focus on the person I'm there with and not on the environment that I'm in.
You're nicer than me, more agreeable. And
that's
very true. And the point of the discussion on nice is that I'm not looking for my kids to overrule their inner feelings and judgment to placate the crowd.
Right, 1,000% agree with that.
Now, on the other side, I do want them to be kind. From your thesaurus, kind is more reflective of positive actions. And so for you, you can define what positive. You could completely disagree with me and say, oh, I love political flags everywhere. And I don't even care what side it's on, whatever. I just want to go to restaurants that have lots of political flags. If that's your thing, fine. That would be an action you take to support that by spending your dollars there. And this is an important caveat and part of the reason why I'm a stickler and why I draw lines in the sand. I believe, and I used to teach this when I taught economics, that every time you spend dollars, you're voting for that company to succeed. I would teach high school kids and they would say, I don't get to vote. No, you don't get to vote in political elections right now, for the majority of them are under the voting age. However, kids largely influence their parents' buying decisions, and they have their own money. I'll put own in quotes. They have money somehow that they go out and buy stuff with. You're voting for those companies to succeed every time you spend the dollar. You might think, well, I'm just good. It's so convenient. Okay, well, you're voting for that convenience. That's fine. But I take spending dollars seriously, and I want to spend it with people that I want to succeed. And I don't want to spend it with people who I don't believe are going to be a positive benefit for the community, my children, the future. And so I'm just not going to be like, oh, whatever, throw it away. I take it seriously.
So the way we teach our kids to critically think about where to spend their dollars, or what to be agreeable with, or what to come up against, what battles to pick, that's one way to put it. is by having those core values, is by role modeling the way if we were to go out to a restaurant and that did happen, we could come home and talk to them about it. Be like, hey, we made this decision today. Or we actually decided last year to no longer, like, whenever we went to this one store locally, we'd always get coffee. And we just decided we're not going to spend our dollars that way, not because we actually love that company, but more because we don't want the kids to see us always having to go out and buy something. We don't have to always go out and spend money or buy coffee. Buy home coffee is awful. The other thing I wanted to add was, we've gone back and forth on sending our kids to public school or homeschooling them. Because obviously they're going to go to school and see and hear things that do not align with our values. But we've made the decision that we want them to come up against adversity. We want them to go out there, because once they graduate, what are they going to just sit home? They're going to have to deal with the real world. They're going to have to deal with differing opinions. And we almost feel like by sending them to the public school, and we do the one that's here, but there are still issues, we're helping them critically think. We're helping them think through, should I be agreeable with this? How do I handle it?
I think this is really important. We're not looking to avoid, let's say conflict, but avoid different opinions. I think it's very good to see them. However, I think it's critical that we teach our kids and our family and ourselves the difference between being nice and being kind. And so when you see those, you don't feel like you have to be agreeable. I believe that's actually selfish. You're just going to be agreeable so that you don't have an awkward situation. You don't have a conflict. And sometimes that's fine. You just walk right by. Some of this stuff, and most of this stuff, isn't even worth the time. However, like, your kids see you agree and accept a lower standard than you want for your family. And now you're role modeling that for your kids. Being kind is different. So being kind might be ignoring it in the moment, but taking action to support something you do believe in. And so showing kindness towards someone who's standing up for the things that you want to align your family with. And so that's different. And so I'm encouraging, be nice. Maybe it's be kind. And then we should have the conversations around the difference between nice and kind, because, hey, be nice just means be agreeable with whatever that other person's telling you. And I worry that if we teach our kids that, they're going to be just part of this easily influenced, high consumerism mass of people in the middle that are suffering right now in our country economically. They're suffering mentally because they're not sure where they stand, what to do. They're not sure who to help them. They're not sure if they're adults or kids. And these words matter.
Going back to the kids and a little bit with school, I feel like we can't just tell our kids what to think. We have to show them and then hope that they will decide and align with things that we think. But you mentioned at the beginning of the episode different phases of parenting. So we have a 5, almost 6-year-old, turned 6 on Friday, and 12 and 14-year-olds now. So we have different types of parenting for each of them based on their personalities, but also based on what grade they're in at school, what they're exposed to. So I have to be very cautious with not just telling them what I think or not just telling them what to do. I have to ask questions and guide them. And that's part of why I pick Logan up from school. So he's in 8th grade. So he can tell me what's going on and I can ask questions and guide him to making decisions. And a lot of it's about who he's spending time with, which he's very cautious about that. And I think that is because of our values. And yesterday, he said to me, there's only 5 kids at school that I think I could hang out with. I'm like, that's great. I love that he's filtering out people that just don't align with where he's at. And he's never really felt the need to have 20 friends, but I love that he's starting to think about it. He's critically thinking. And if I just said, oh, you can't hang out with that kid, you can't hang out with that kid, not that there isn't a place for that, I can see him starting to think a little bit more, critically think a little bit more, and making connections with people who matter. This one teacher that he really has fun with, it's also the soccer coach, and he really enjoys this teacher this year. And he drives this little powder blue car, and it's funny. And Logan just so happened to get some blue filament for his 3D printer, and he 3D printed him this car. And I said, did he ask you to? No, I just wanted to. So he's making connections with people, trying to make deposits into that investment with this teacher because he really admires him. I think I like seeing that the kids are starting to think critically because of that constant gentle pressure of us discussing with them what our values are and being role models about it.
Now I want to bring this down from the abstract to the practical. and this is one last point I want to make on niceness before we slide over to kindness, is that now, if niceness is agreeable, you would assume the opposite. What I'm advocating for is to be disagreeable, and that's not true. I believe that there's this middle area where instead of being agreeable, you are indifferent. The people want you to choose yes or no. They want this to be black or white. People ask, like, oh, what do you think about this? Like, I don't think about that. And sometimes that hurts more, it stings more. Like, what do you mean you don't care about this global thing? Like, yeah, like it would be nice to have the luxury to think about that, but I've got to take care of my house, my family, my community, my school, my area first in that order. And then we can think about whatever else this person's trying to get me to think about. So protect your brain, be indifferent towards more things, not be disagreeable, but just don't think about it. Save your time and be practical and stay on your path and your focus and what you want to accomplish as your family. And you can say, I don't think about that. Don't
Well,
let people control your thoughts in your direction. Go ahead.
yeah, being disagreeable, you're still putting energy. You're still using
Right.
your energy. So I use this idea with this visual example with the kids where if you have, let's pretend you're a gas tank and you fill up every morning and you're full in the morning, and then how are you going to expend your energy that day? Are you going to expend your energy on personal development, improving your physical and mental health, or are you going to expend your energy on being disagreeable with other people or with ideas? So I love that you said, I think the word indifferent has historically been like a real negative word. But I think in this context, it's actually awesome because what you're really saying is like that I'm not going to expend my energy on that topic. I'm going to instead, because this is an opportunity cost thing too. If you're going to expend a quarter of your tank on arguing or commenting online because you didn't like what this person said or whatever, then you now no longer have that quarter tank to pour into yourself, your spouse, your kids. And those are the things that should be core.
People have trained themselves to get that dopamine release, that feel good over saying words, being nice, and not taking action, which is being kind and actually makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to care about 1 million issues that you aren't influencing at all? Or would you rather care about 2 issues that you are really pushing forward and that you help and assist? And I think that's the tough truth there. Now, being kind, I was reading an article on leadership to bring this point home, and it was more on business leadership, but giving it a teammate or a staff member or a family member kind feedback is usually clear and consistent with an opportunity to improve or an opportunity for you to help that person. Nice feedback is protecting their feelings in lieu of telling them really what they need to hear. And so a kind leader, boss, coach, teammate is usually one that'll get the best out of you. Someone that is nice is usually liked but underperforms. And that is the nuance when it comes to leadership. And I don't think that we want to be nice and underperform. It's just the direction we go because we see it happening so much. We see it role modeled for us, and then we start role modeling, like I mentioned, for our kids. And instead, getting very clear and giving opportunities to improve is the kind path. And that's what I'm advocating for.
That's so good. So I'm trying to think of an example. Something happened a couple weeks ago, and I felt like I needed to give a tough truth to one of the kids. And I actually came to you first to talk about it because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just like calling him out. I wanted to be kind, be clear, be very clear. And I also wanted to give an opportunity to improve. So I love those two aspects of it because if you think about it, if your kid does something that you don't appreciate, or if they get in trouble or whatever the case may be, we don't want to just yell at them. We want to explain why it wasn't okay, and that takes clarity. So in our apologies, we never just say, I'm sorry. We say, I'm sorry for. You need to be clear about what you're sorry for. You have to know, and then the other person deserves to recognize that you know what you did wrong. And the other part being the end of the apology is, what can I do, or how can I help, is how they put it. And that's really the action part. So I think the way we apologize is kind. It's not just nice. It's not, I'm sorry. It's no, I'm sorry because I did this particular thing. And sometimes if they're not specific enough, I'll make them be more specific. And then they have to have an action plan of how to improve.
Very good. I love that correlation with the kindness and the action plan. And to try to bring this home before we end the episode, a little would you rather. Would you rather have someone say that they're your friend or act like they're your friend? Would you rather have someone say it's Valentine's Day when we're recording this? Would you rather have someone say it they love you or act like they love you? Niceness defaults more towards these platitudes, just saying things. Kindness is more about acting the way that you believe. And that's why we push more towards kindness. I'm not saying this world doesn't need a little bit of niceness here and there. However, if you can back it up with some action, then you can actually improve things versus just band-aid it so you're out of that situation. And in the long run, it's a long-term negative instead of a long-term positive.
So this made me think of something funny. So we try to laugh a lot. We have a lot of humor in our home. And sometimes we'll compliment each other randomly, and then we'll say something like, "That's nice of you to say." Like, I don't know if
Because
I'm
we're digging deeper for extra compliments.
Yes, you're like digging for more, but this is exactly the point. It's great to get a compliment, but how much greater is it to show through action?
Most greaterists.
I recently texted someone accidentally. I said greatly great. I meant to say really great, but it came out as greatly great. But that's just it. Are we really showing it and not just saying it? So that's our little joke. We say, "Oh, that's nice to say," but we really show action. So like yesterday, you came downstairs. So we joke about Valentine's Day sometimes. And you came downstairs and you asked me to be your Valentine in front of the kids. Now that was intentional because we want them to see that this is how you treat your spouse and all that. But instead of just saying it to me, you then asked me to go out with you today and we're going to do a little hike around Garden of the Gods. So there was like action beyond it. Action behind that, not just you saying, "Do you want to be my Valentine?" That's nice of you to say. But no, you took it to the next step and you showed that kindness by then thinking further and say, what could we actually do together? So that meant so much more to me than if you had just said it with words. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad you said yes to be my Valentine. Appreciate it. Let's start to land this plane with a couple of the takeaways Mel mentioned very early on in the episode. Constant gentle pressure. So the question is, how do we get to be more kind? How do we prefer kindness in action over niceness in words? It's constant gentle pressure to those around us, including ourselves. The hardest person to hold accountable is ourselves. And so we have to make sure that we are being kind, acting right, acting within our values for the long-term benefit of those around us. Something that we hinted at the first episode and skirted around this episode is we do want our kids to be more successful, smarter, stronger than we are. That has to be earned through action, though. They have to, it's not a skill that I can give them. I can't make them strong. I can help guide them on the path to be strong. Can't make them smart. Mel's got to break out the thesaurus to a 5-year-old to teach them the difference between strong and well-built at night. So it's constant action. It's so much higher value interactions than just words or whatever, especially if they're not backed by action. They're worthless.
Hey, this morning, the kids sometimes have a late start Wednesday. They get 2 hours. They go in 2 hours late. And Everett came we were working out, and Everett came in, and you moved the bench up for him because he jumps over it 5 times. And you pull it out, and you're like, "Okay, I pulled it out for you." And he's thinking about doing it. And I was like, "Everett, quit thinking about it and just go do it." And then he could have been stubborn and just said no. But 3 seconds later, he's over there jumping. So again, it's just like finding those opportunities to move the kids from just saying things to doing things is in any opportunity that you can see to do that.
And I know we've talked a lot about kids. The last thing I want to mention is the parenting approach. And so it is easier to be agreeable with your kids. If they say something and you just give into it, then you are being nice to them and you're avoiding some stress in that situation. Kids don't always want to do the more challenging thing, though. They need it role modeled. They need some constant gentle pressure to do it. So if you say, "Oh, let me use my tablet," or "Let me do this extra thing," that's nice. I'll give you a concrete example. I was to pick up Logan after school last Thursday. And it'd been nice if I just picked him up, but that's not my style. I want to be kind. And by being kind, I parked the truck about 2 miles away, 1.5 miles, 2 miles away at some park. And we played hot or cold till he found it. Walking around the neighborhoods. Took a little over an hour. Mel's texted me, "When are you home for dinner?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm getting Logan." And we had a good interaction. We had some good time together. We chatted about it. He saw the fun in it. He was a very good sport about it. So we played hot or cold till we found it, got a couple miles in together. He was carrying his book bag and being strong about it. That was kind because it was an action that we got. We say we want to spend time together. We say we want to train together. We say we want to have fun together. Those are nice things to say, but how are you going to do it? And so you have to sprinkle that in. He would have preferred if I parked the very first spot up on the sidewalk so he could just roll in and then roll out. But that's not the kind thing.
And honestly, the steps of the path are action steps. They are all action-based. Now, you can start by discussing them to see where you want to start. And obviously, figuring out your values requires a lot of discussion. But you still have an end goal. You're still acting and trying to create some goals or trying to create your values. Or any of the other steps, they are all action-based. So I think that's a great place to start. If you don't know what to do, not everybody's as spontaneous as you are with thinking of your ways to make it fun. So if you need some more very concrete steps, we have the Strong Family Guidebook out on Amazon. We have the Steps of the Path for free on our website. And those are all action steps you can start on today.
All right, Mel. Now, my hesitation to even shoot this episode was that, of course, I'm going to come off as the cantankerous old man that doesn't want to be nice and just is old and grumpy, doesn't want to go to places he doesn't want to go to, and doesn't want to spend money with people who are valued in the similar ways. And sometimes we yin and yang these. Do you have any corrections, or do you think I overstepped in niceness versus kindness? Sometimes I have a grupper way to say it, and you may have said it in a nicer way. I want to be kind, though, and make sure that I give you adequate room to correct if you think I have been too grumpy.
You didn't get too cantankerous this time. I should thesaurus that word. Here's what I think. I think sometimes even when I'm listening to you and I'm sitting over here, or our example about the restaurant with if you were invited to a party, how you wouldn't go, but I probably would. I think that you set an interesting standard for people to start thinking about changing how they live. Not that they're going to go to your not to your position or your, I don't even want to call it an extreme because I think it works really well for you and for our family. But I think what I like about it is that you might cause people to think twice. And sometimes if we say it too nicely, it might not strike the chord that needs to be struck to get some kind of action started or get some thoughts going. So I don't think you were too grumpy this episode. I think it actually caused some thought-provoking. I'm not saying it right. I'm not being clear. So I think sometimes it works to your advantage because it might make somebody think, man, if he's doing that, maybe I can make some kind of change.
I'll respect those as the last words. Appreciate the thoughts. StrongFamilyProject.com is where you can download the 7 Steps of the Path. We are stringing season 2 together. Looking forward to and excited for the next topic. If you missed the episode on what does parenting success look like, revisit episode 1 and we'll talk to you next week on Thursday. Have a great day.